What is up, fellow football fans, and welcome back to another edition of the ONETA Football Show, brought to you by PTE Creative. As always, I'm your host, Evan Davies. Today, we are talking something very specific here. It's part of our three-part series on how to fix college football, and it's a new college football playoff structure. And it is going to be fun, let me tell you. I'll give you a little sneak peek on how things are going to be working, just like that. Before we go into everything, I think it's really important to see our current structure. Now, I said this is a three-part series. If you haven't caught the other episodes, which I highly recommend you do because it's going to give you a lot of context as to why I'm doing the thing. This is all part of the Time to Fix college football series. So, episode 1 was establishing the College Football Alliance, which is an idea I created in which college football, via their schools, create a self-governance body for college football to really just make sure college football in and of itself is successful and lasts for as long as possible. That's the whole point. With that being said, we have all new conferences then, all new levels of competition with paid players for every single team across FBS, starting with the same pool of money, which is really, really cool and important to say. College football, in and of itself, is hindered because it has an inconsistent governing body with the NCAA that doesn't really befit the sport anymore. The NCAA may be successful at protecting other sports, but not necessarily college football very well, especially since college football is the driver between 3/4 of the money of college sports. Now, with that being said, we needed a governing body. That's why we created the College Football Alliance. But the college football playoff in its current existence is actually part of the inspiration as to why I thought a college football alliance or a governing body created by the schools can work. College football playoffs are not owned by the NCAA. It's not like the NCAA tournament where they host it, they make the money, and those 68 schools on both the men's and women's side in March are successful, and then the majority of the money goes to the NCAA and then is filtered through them. The college football playoff structure is actually owned by every college football conference in Notre Dame. So every school has a say in it, theoretically. In its current format, well, in its last use format, because we are transitioning to a new one, technically, it was a 4-team playoff with 4 at-large bids. With pretty much your guarantee was the Big Ten champion was getting in, the SEC championship was getting in, and then 2 schools that people thought deserved to get in would get in. And it was based off the quality of a conference most of the time. That's the reason we saw Washington there this year. And then Texas, because they beat Alabama, who was the SEC champion, Texas deserved to get in. It was a logical way, but you're breaking down 134 teams. You're trying to make sure it works, and you only have 4 at-large bids. So not every conference championship game matters. You could theoretically lose a conference championship game and still get in that system. It doesn't make a whole heck of a lot of sense because you only have 4. We're now going to a system of 12 at-large bids. So you can say, oh, the championship game will matter a little bit more. That's theoretically true, but not for every conference. Not every conference's championship game is going to matter. Some smaller schools that usually don't get a chance will get that in a 12 at-large system. But what I'm proposing is a 16-game system with coherence because there's only 6 conferences in the college football. So I'm going to go over a little quick review of that again. It's a recap from the last show, but we're going to go through it quickly. So to get to this new format of college football, the college football playoff, you have to get new conferences and old conferences meshed together into 6 coherent conferences. You have your Big Ten, which is pretty much its staples from back in the day, with very few changes. But Michigan, Ohio State, Minnesota, Iowa, Wisconsin, they're all still there. But they pick up Nebraska, Kansas, and Missouri. Quality stuff. We go to the next one. SEC, I'm sorry, not SEC, the Big 12, we'll start there. You still have Texas, Oklahoma, Baylor, Texas A&M, Arkansas. They also pick up LSU. Texas Tech is still in there. They're quality programs over in the Big 12. To make it a very worthwhile thing, Oklahoma State's still in that preview as well. The last existing conference, you still have the two national powerhouses of Alabama and Georgia. But you get Ole Miss. You get Florida. You pick up Florida State. You pick up Miami, Florida. Pick up a lot of good programs in the SEC under its current ruling. So even though they lose an LSU to the Big 12, they gain some with Florida State, Miami, some quality programs. Then we got our new conferences. The Northeastern Conference. And a lot of these schools that are listed here, you see here, you may say, well, Penn State's the only one that's really worthwhile. Well, West Virginia can make a run. Pitt could make a run. Army and Navy, they're here for name brand here, but they also pick up Notre Dame. Maryland has been competitive. Rutgers has been competitive. So you get some quality play there in that new conference. Then what could be considered the best conference with 25 total teams is the Pacific West. Utah, Washington, Oregon, USC, Arizona. Oregon State is still there. Arizona State's still there. Colorado. And a lot of high-quality, smaller schools that are still in play there. Cal, UCLA, big-time teams. And then the final of the new conference, the Smoky Mountain, which is sneaky competitive. Clemson, Louisville, Kentucky, North Carolina, Tennessee, South Carolina. A lot of quality little schools in there. And by little, I don't mean belittle. Just out of nowhere. Nice little guy coming through. Powerhouse to get through. That all leads to this. A new college football playoff structure. So here's your biggest thing right off the bat. I'll keep the graphic up and take it down from time to time. Take a good look at that. We have 16 teams. And take a look at the teams, because there's a bigger variance in there than you'd think. But we go through. The biggest thing I wanted to fix was it matters. Every game matters now. You can always say, well, every game matters. Does it? Florida State went 12-0 last year. They didn't even get a chance to play for the playoff because most people just said, well, they lost their quarterback, so it doesn't matter. They had a perfect season. They didn't get to play. Is that fair? In this system, it works. That team gets in. Every game still matters. Your divisions matter. Your conference matters. Your biggest thing here is this. If we recall, I'll give you an example here. Every single conference has been divided into two divisions, which means in late November, early December, or you could even do it early November. I personally would put it the weekend before Thanksgiving. You know the NFL is going to dominate Thanksgiving, so play the weekend before Thanksgiving and start a new tradition for yourselves. Your conference championship game becomes eminently important. Those two teams are playing for higher seeding in a tournament of 16 teams. But what's super cool is you won your division. You should be rewarded. You'll still have an opportunity to win and prove your mettle against other teams, but your seeding won't be as high. So theoretically, you're going to have a harder time going forward and playing the playoff and winning the national championship game. Plus, as you already saw, we only have 6 divisions and we have 16 teams. How does that break down? Every conference winner gets in. Every conference loser has a chance still. And by loser, they still won their division. So, there's still a top 12 team theoretically in the country. And we still have 4 at-large bids to make sure we still represent college football the best possible with high quality teams. So it balances out maybe if a conference isn't so hot one year and we have two teams that maybe, I don't know, maybe they shouldn't be there. We're still going to get four high quality teams. And if you can't finish with either a division win, a conference win, or you're one of the four best teams divided by the AP poll and the coaching poll. I just took the AP poll for an example here. If you can't be one of those teams, you don't deserve a chance at the national championship. But here you actually can make that claim accurately. Whereas last year, you had high quality teams. Georgia didn't get a chance to play. Florida State didn't get a chance to play. Oregon didn't get a chance to play. You can say, well, they didn't win. I understand that. But they're still high quality teams. Now you allow yourself that every game matters because it gives you better opportunity and better seeding. However, you still have a chance, even if you falter, to make it and still prove that you're the best in the game. It's based off the NFL model as best as that possibly can be done here, which is why we can go to the tournament now of itself. We go to the playoff itself. So here's the most important part. The teams included, I included this from the 2023 polling done to determine the top 25 of college football right before the college playoff was taken. What teams got in, what teams deserve to get in. So that's what determines seeding here. So it was obvious last year Michigan was the top team. They deserve the number one seed. But what's very cool about this format and why I love this format so much, if you look at this programming here, you see this. The 1 through 6 seed would be what would be college conference winners from their previous season. So Michigan would have been the Big Ten winner. Washington was the Pacific West winner, if these conferences still existed. Texas would have been the Big 12 winner. Alabama, the SEC winner. Penn State theoretically would have been the Northeast Coast winner. Not the Northeastern Conference winner. And Louisville, being the highest placed of the Smoky Mountain Conference at the time, they would have been the 6th seed. So already you have 5 mainstays and a slightly outside the wall pick because they did the best of their conference. But they would have been the conference winner based off of polling. Now, you could say maybe they wouldn't have won the game. That's fine because you'd have different wins, but I'm just taking it to give an example. So theoretically, your 6 conference winners last year get, from last year, this is how you'd formulate it. So the conference winners, determining they're the best team in each conference, get the top 6 seeds. Then you go to the next tier down. Your conference loser, so to speak, which is such a poor term for it. They're the second best team in the conference. They faltered in probably a high-quality championship game against a great opponent. But they still won one of the 12 divisions in college football, so they still need to be represented here. So for your 7 through 12 seeds, you have conference championship game losers. So this wouldn't be fair because they didn't lose any games last year. But in terms of seeding where they were at the time, you have the conference bid of Florida State. Now, the other thing that's really cool about this is you could do it straight 7 through 12, conference losers do it. But instead, what I did was take the AP poll that was available to me at the time and created this playoff format. So, not only do we guarantee that the division winners get in, but then we take into account quality of play based on the coaches poll and the AP poll. So, as the best team that wasn't a conference winner based off of the new alignment and the results of last year, Florida State gets the 7th seed. Georgia, with only one loss, still gets a great at-large bid at the 8 seed. Then you have a really interesting matchup here. Ohio State gets a 9 seed because they lost the Big Ten championship game. Or I'm sorry, they lost. Yeah, they lost the championship game and they lost the one in the Big House. 10 seed Oregon, Pac-12 loser last year, but they were still a powerhouse. They were still a top 5 school for most of the country, or for most of the season. At large bid, they get the 10 seed. 11 seed Missouri. Here, because of the seeding, I believe they were the number 9 team in the country at the time from the poll. They get the 11 seed because they're not one of the 2 best schools, but they're still a tremendous school here. So they get in based off their polling as an at-large bid. Then 12 Ole Miss was a very competitive school last year. They get in at the 12 seed. Then you continue with your at-large bids. At 13, you have Oklahoma. 14, LSU. 15, North Carolina State or NC State. And 16, Liberty. And many people would say, why does Liberty deserve to be there? Liberty was right outside the top 25 to end the year. And they were at 23 or 25, I believe. One of the two at the time of the playoff determinations from last year. And you could still say, well, why do they deserve to be there? In this format, what's so cool, when you make sure that the division winner gets in, again, this isn't theoretically perfect, but this is based off of polling and who would make it. You'd have every conference is guaranteed 2 teams. So you know every conference has a fair shot to try to win the college football playoff that year. Plus, you still have 4 at-large bids to reward great teams that just couldn't make it through from injuries aren't going to possibly derail a season as unfairly as they do in college football. Florida State can still get in. You can still have those great teams get there. So you have 4 at-large bids for anyone across the country who isn't a division winner. And then you can have some of those really fun miracle runs like we see in the wild card rounds. Such as last year in the NFL. You saw the 7 seed Packers who just got hot at the right time because their quarterback finally turned the corner. They beat the powerhouse in Dallas and they kicked their ass. And BT Dub, just so everyone can see it because you know I'm a proud Wisconsin Green Bay Packer fan. Country, world, you're fucking welcome. Because we all know America's a better country when the Cowboys lose. And the real America's team took care of business. But back to college football. Oh, lastly, fuck the Cowboys. Now back to college football. But here again, you're seeing the highest representation you can. So you can fairly say each conference gets 2 teams in the college playoff. Plus 4 at-large bids. So everyone is equally represented and the best of college football is still represented. So even when you could say Liberty doesn't deserve to be there, they're only a top 25 team. Okay. Well, based on their polling, they still make it because they're a division winner in a conference. However, they don't get as high of a seed as, let's say, a Missouri. But Missouri was a better team than them last year, theoretically. They don't get as high of a seed as Ole Miss, even though they theoretically would be a division winner and Ole Miss wasn't. Because, frankly, we saw it. It's what's most determined. So you get away from a lot of the subjectivity of college football in this format. I think that's one of the biggest issues people have with the college football playoff. And then back in the day with the BCS championship game series was, I mean, shit, what was it, 2004 or 2005? The number one team in the country didn't even play in the national championship game. Because by computer programming, they weren't deserving of that spot. But then a lot of people also argued for that as well, because there's such a subjective nature with too many of these. Here, you get to say this. Most of the time, you're going to have one clear, definitive best team in division. It's not every division's going to be able to, not everybody in a team division is going to be able to play everybody in their division. However, it's going to be pretty goddamn clear for most divisions. The cream will rise to the top. And theoretically, if you really wanted to, you could play a divisional championship game. It's a bit much. I don't think it's necessary. So you still have those vestiges of the fun arguments of college football, but we're getting down far more to a closer exact science of making sure the best teams are represented while also still having reason for divisions and conferences to matter. Now, as we continue back into the format here, here's what I think is the coolest part about it. It makes no sense to me as to why teams couldn't have home bowl games or home championship games. Now, I'm all for an understanding that to make sure that the conference could make more money, you could make the conference championship game a rotating event that cities and stadiums bid on. I understand that. People want that. But then what's super cool about it is you have 8 games right off the bat that the higher seed can have a home game. Imagine the big house in the snow of December with 105,000 screaming, crazy Wolverine fans. And they're hosting a home college football playoff game. Something that's never happened before. This format it can. Imagine Happy Valley. Imagine the whiteout conditions of Penn State there. I'm not talking even snow here. I'm just talking the fun whiteout games that happen at Penn State. They're hosting an Ole Miss. Or vice versa. Look at these fun matchups. Florida State gets to host Oregon. This is where you can say, now the cream rises to the top. If you saw the past episodes of this series, you saw that I broke down conferences as much by geographic location as possible to preserve the history and the tradition of college football and preserving the ability for these players to still be athletes, but still get paid handsomely to do what they're being asked to do and what their ability allows them to do. But now we're to a specialty where less than 10%, or just over 10%, I should say, just over 10% of the teams are actually affected by this. So you can have home playoff games between all these teams. So Florida State can host an Oregon. Or in what, I didn't even rig it this way. I just looked at AP polling and had the science to it. Imagine a first round playoff game television rating. Mercedes-Benz Dome. Down in Atlanta. Georgia hosts Ohio State. Imagine the playoff fervor of getting those two schools in that building. Imagine Georgia getting to have a home game against Ohio State. Such a high-quality opponent that can really give them a run for their money. Imagine a 4 seed like Alabama being challenged by a 13 seed Oklahoma, and the Crimson Tide has to hold off Boomer Sooner in a home playoff game. And you know, not only, whoa, this is big because 2 teams are playing in a regular season match. No, they're determining their own future now in a playoff game. the stakes are raised, competition is higher, and the game is better for it. So you see, first round, it's all home playoff games. And then we can go back to our traditional college model of going, now we're going to go to the New Year's Six. We're going to reinvigorate why those games are important, why those games matter, because they determine the best teams in college football. And you can make more of a staple of the Peach Bowl, the Fiesta Bowl, the Cotton Bowl, and the Sugar Bowl. Those 4 games now determine the Final Four of the college football playoff. They determine who are the 4 best teams. If you want to, especially because it's a wonky time of year for students, you can have those games any night of the week. You don't have to worry about the NFL. You don't have to worry about the NBA. You don't have to worry about primetime television because you are high stakes college football at its finest in those games with tradition that goes back decades, almost centuries in the case of the Rose Bowl. Think about that. So much fun to be had with there. And then you go to your Final Four games and you go to the classic locations of the Rose Bowl and the Orange Bowl. And the Rose Bowl always hosts the bracket for the number 1 seed. It's the granddaddy of them all. It is the biggest college football bowl game in history. In terms of you haven't gotten to a national championship game yet, but if you're still going to have those bowls, it works out perfectly that the New Year's Six just turn into the 6 best games of the year based off playoffs of who has earned their right to be there. And then because it's the granddaddy of them all, whoever comes out of the number 1 seeded sided bracket, they're playing in the Rose Bowl. Imagine a miracle run of a 16 seed going into the Rose Bowl, beating a number 1 seed, beating a number 8 seed, 2 of the best teams in the country, playing in the Rose Bowl because they've earned it and they deserve it. And a smaller school that goes on a miracle run can go do that. That's the magic and that's the beauty of college football at its finest. That's why I love this format. Is it allows for smaller schools to have a chance to really compete. If they can get to the divisional round, they can do it. And that's what's super cool about this to me. So then you are honoring the history of college football. You're honoring the tradition of college football. But then you still have the ability for those miracle small schools to happen and to have their underdog run that makes us love the sport. And it allows all those 6 games to still be neutral location sites that can be bid on by host cities. They can be rotational outside of the Rose Bowl and the Orange Bowl. So you have 4 new properties that can be bid on because you control them as the College Football Alliance. And you can say, well, who's going to host it? And the Cotton Bowl, obviously, you think the actual Cotton Bowl will host it. But there's no fixed location for the Peach Bowl or the Fiesta Bowl or the Sugar Bowl anymore. They're rotational. So then you can have them be hosted somewhere and still have it. And yes, it's not like the Super Bowl where it rotates every year, but you still could do that. And it generates more money for the schools, for the players, for the partners in the not the NCAA because we're getting rid of them, but for the College Football Alliance. It generates more money for everybody if you do that. That's why I love this thing. It's just successful because it benefits everybody in some way, shape, or form. And then finally, you have proven without a shadow of a doubt, there is no more, well, we didn't get to play them, so it wasn't fair. You know the 2 best teams because they went out and they won and they survived and they beat each other. They beat everybody in their path. You know for a fact the 2 best teams in college football are going to play at the end of the year, and those 2 teams are going to have the right to play for a national championship. It may seem heavy-handed. It may seem like I laid it on thick, but it's the best part about a 16-team playoff for college football. And done with structure and order to make sure that not only can smaller schools have a better chance of being represented, but also more opportunity for those big schools that just something happened to them. Injury, unlucky kick, the wind got to you. Then no one can say, well, the weather. You still get 4 at-large bids. Beyond conference winners and division winners. It's a really, really successful model that allows for more growth of the sport and the cream of the crop to rise to the top. That's what I love about this specific structure for a college football playoff. Why I will preach it till the day I die, because I think it's the right way to do things, and I think it makes perfect sense. And if you think I made perfect sense, I feel like you should try to reward me for it. So, gotta ask you, man. I gotta ask you, please, 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 please. Head over to our Etsy shop. Go to ptecreative.etsy.com. Get yourself some cool merch, man. There's some really fine, dope-ass merch over at our Etsy shop. We got all kinds of stuff that revolves around the content on our channel. We got Pokemon stuff. We got football stuff. We got national park stuff. We got our own awesome, snarky fashion line over with the You Hate to See It line. But we got fictional stuff too. It's got lots of fun stuff. Hoodies, hats, t-shirts, stickers. We've got something for everybody here, and there's only more merchandise being added on a regular basis. So go check out ptecreative.etsy.com. Go get yourself some merch. But that is going to do it for this series. Again, if you just want to know the college football playoff format idea, great. But I highly recommend, if you haven't caught it already, go check out parts 1 and 2 on how to create a better union. We, fans of college football, would love it. Part 1 is all about creating the College Football Alliance. Part 2 was all about conference realignment and how can 6 conferences really work with 2 divisions in each conference. Go check it out. We're also, in the near future, going to be doing, as a weekly release, 1 mega episode with all 3 parts smashed together. So if you just want to wait for everything to be there, that's totally fine. But go check that out as soon as you can. But if you liked this video, or if you liked this podcast over on Spotify, if you're on Spotify, leave us a review. If you like the video, like, comment, subscribe. Share this with as many people as you possibly can. Share this with the NCAA so they can know there's another person that doesn't like them and thinks they're incompetent when it comes to this stuff. I don't care. Share it with whoever you wish, whether you think I'm a genius, whether you think I'm in the middle, or whether you think, frankly, my ideas suck. But either way, share it. Let people think about it. Check out our socials over on Instagram and TikTok. Head over to our Etsy shop for more merch. Check out all the other fine programming over at PTE Creative with this awesome, cool stuff over here. Like Mondays or Tuesdays with the ONETA show, or Wednesdays with custom Pokemon. Thursdays, you're already here with football. Or Fridays with a rotational basis. There's all kinds of cool stuff. Go check it out. But this concludes the How to Fix and the Time to Fix College Football series. It's been an honor, a privilege as always. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. I have been your host, Evan Davies, over here at PTE Creative. Thank you so much for joining me, and I'll catch you in the next episode. Peace, love, and hugs to you all.